What's up guys, how's it going? Today I'm going to talk about the 5 steps that I took to leave my corporate job and move to Asia. So I think that it's important to understand what's inside the head of somebody who decides to make such a life-changing decision. And if I had better understood what other people had gone through in the same situation, maybe it would have been easier for myself during the couple of months that I made the transition from office life in New York to moving abroad and living in China. So obviously the first thing that I did was submit my letter of resignation. I remember typing up an email and sending it to my friend who had already told that I was thinking about quitting my job, and I had him just read over it and he's like, yeah, that's perfect. So essentially my 2 weeks notice, which is pretty standard in any type of work or job in the US at least. So I emailed my manager and told him that I needed to have a discussion with him, and then I went to his office and I just told him that things weren't working out the way that I had planned, and that I thanked them for all of the resources and time they invested in me and training me for the couple months that I was there at this time. But long term I wasn't the right fit for the job, and I wasn't somebody who was gonna really be effective in the position that they needed. So gave him the letter of resignation and that was it. So it was a pretty clear-cut and straightforward discussion. He asked me what company I was going to, and then I told him that I was moving to China, and he kind of just went, whoa, I was not expecting that. So I'm pretty sure everyone in my company thought I was crazy, but you know, I just didn't really get. And then the next thing that I did was buy my one-way ticket to China. And this was a really important step for me because this basically solidified that I was leaving, the decision was made, there was no turning back, that I was moving to Asia, and that's that. So after having done that, it's a huge mental shift. After that decision, it just becomes much more real. So that is a big part of the process for me, at least. The next thing that I did was tell my family. So this was tricky because I grew up in a family where everyone has followed the scripted path that we are spoon-fed throughout life, which is go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a degree, get a job. And breaking away from that path can be very frightening, and I knew that I was going to get some lashback or some criticism, and I wasn't really sure how I was going to break it to my family, especially because I had probably the most going for me in terms of like my potential opportunities in the corporate life, if you will. I had a nice job in New York. It's like everybody in that bubble would be thinking that I had it made. So this was going to be a tough thing to explain to my family of why I'm just quitting this nice cushy office job and basically throwing it all down the drain and moving my life to another part of the world. So I took a trip to California it was like a 3-day weekend, so I flew from New York to California, and during that time I basically remember telling my mom, we were taking a walk, and I told my mom that I was gonna quit my job and move to Asia, and she was pretty supportive at first, and you know, I think initially there was probably some shock and not really sure how to process that, but you know, my parents have always been supportive, so that was nice to not totally get chewed out for a decision that is ultimately up to me. After I told my family, I went back to New York, and I did get some feedback and some people trying to talk me out of doing what I was doing, and I can see why. Like, it seems like a very crazy thing, like a very irrational thing to do when you're in a situation like I was in, where you have a nice job and you have people who think that you're on this path, this trajectory that is like perfectly laid out in front of you, and then all of a sudden you're throwing that away. Why would you do that? I don't think you should do this. Maybe you should rethink your decision. Maybe you should wait a couple years. You know, I heard all of these decisions, but in my head I was already committed. There was nothing that was gonna sway my decision. I wasn't on the fence about it. I remember when I made the decision, it was so clear to me that this is what I needed to do. So there was no turning back from there. The fourth thing I did was rented out my apartment in New York. And to me, this is an important thing just in my story, because people say how it's so difficult to do things. Like, how are you gonna rent out your room? You're never gonna get somebody in there. How are you gonna get out of your contract? There's always like a million reasons of why you can't do something until you do it. And then you realize it's really not that complicated, and there's always a way to do it if you just do it step by step and figure it out as you go. And that's actually a big lesson in entrepreneurship. Like, there will be a million and one reasons why you can't do something, but those are people who don't want you to succeed. You can do whatever you want to do as long as you just go forward, do it step by step, and little by little, you can achieve whatever you want. So yeah, I got my room filled, I got out of the contract, and shipped the rest of my crap back to California. Basically, the fifth and final step was getting all my accounts arranged and making sure that all of my mail and all of my account, like credit card accounts, basically all financial or tax accounts or all that stuff, sent to one address where I knew that the mail would be safe. So for me, that was an address, permanent address in California, so that when I'm abroad, I have somebody who can check my mail. Everyone is gonna have their own set of steps that they would take to quit their job. This is just my story. It's not like these steps are mandatory or very special. I just kind of wanted to give you guys insight that was going on in my brain when I took the dive and made the decision to leave my job. I think it's important to talk about like a little bit of the mindset that goes into this type of decision, because I remember I was on the phone with my buddy Carl. He had already moved to Asia about 8 months before me, and when he told me he quit, I was just like, holy crap, this is crazy. Like, he's actually going, he's insane. And in my head I was like, wow, it'd be so great to do that one day, but I can't do that. I could never do that. I have a good job, and I've got all these responsibilities, and I have an apartment, and I have these things I have to pay for. And I think that's what most people can identify with. Like, you feel like you have all of these things that you have to do and all of these roles that you have to fill, but when it really comes down to it, there's nothing really stopping you. Like, it's just up in your own head. Of course, it's different. Like, if you have a family and you have a mortgage payment and you're stuck in a house, yeah, it makes it a little bit more challenging, but it still doesn't mean that there aren't ways to get out of that. And that's basically what I want this video to really get across, is that if you are really unhappy with something and you want to make a change but you feel like you can't, that's really just an excuse. Like, there's always a way to move the needle forward and make a change that will have a better impact on your life. It's really about just taking action and moving the needle step by step and getting something done until you achieve the result that you want. And for me, that was quitting my job in New York, moving to California to basically move all my stuff that I had, and then taking off and moving to China. Felt like an impossibility just months prior until I made it real in my head and figured out how to do it in reality. So that's all I have for today. I just wanted to kind of talk about the mindset stuff. I like talking about this stuff because I realized that there's a ton of people who were in my situation, and they just need that mental shift that it takes to take that leap or take that risk or make that decision that can really change your life and have a super big impact. Yeah, so that's pretty much all I have, guys. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Comment down below if you haven't seen my travel video in Korea I just released earlier this week. Go check it out. All right, later.